Hey everybody, this is Johnny Van Zandt from Leonard Skinner with my guard dog Chanel. We like watching Stirring the Pot with Dennis Aloia, Chris Massey, Jerry Farber, and Matthew Schwartz. Anyway, we're going to stir the pot on American Hearts Radio, Web TV.
Welcome back, everybody, to this month's edition of Stirring the Pot. Boy, we got a great show playing for you all tonight. We've been getting a lot of comments from a lot of people around the world via our website and also the No Strings Attached e-newsletter. They're getting a lot of hits. So I guess our show is generating a good amount of interest amongst liberals, independents, and Republicans. We are the common, everyday person you see out there. We just have very strong opinions on both sides of the fence politically. And we're going to express those opinions. We may take a couple of shots at each other across the bow here tonight, but we'll make it fun, and we'll kiss and make up at the end of the thing. Oh, no, I won't kiss him. Anyway, before we get started into the meat of the show, I just wanted to reintroduce myself. We all are professionals in our own right, and I'll let you know who we are and what we do. I'm Dennis Aloia, and I'm one of the co-hosts here. I am a professional magician. I live here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And by the way, I've got a show coming up May the 7th with the astounding, funny Mr. Brian T. Shirley at the Lake Arrowhead Golf and Country Club in Waleska, Georgia at 8:30 p.m. You can look them up, Google them, and get your tickets. $22 including dinner and a 2-hour extravaganza of magic, comedy, and all kinds of stuff. This man to my left is the amazing attorney Matthew Schwartz of the world-famous Schwartz Law Group.
You've heard of it?
Yes, I have. I have actually retained your services before. The man to his left is Mr. Chris Massey. Give him a wave out there, Chris. Oh, that was impressive. And then we have down here at the very end, the world-famous living legend, Mr. Jerry Farber.
Thank you. Thanks for
comedian extraordinaire. As a matter of fact, Jerry told me earlier this evening that he had a play I think he wrote, or it's a movie, isn't it?
I wrote a script
that was picked up by Hollywood.
By Hollywood. It's about Chris Christie called I Was a Teenage Warehouse, and it's about his life as a high school student.
Okay.
So, yeah. He's lost weight.
I was a teenage warehouse.
I was a teenage warehouse.
Yeah.
He was a big guy. He played football, too.
He's still a big guy.
Yeah, big guy.
Well, anyway, we're going to start off tonight with a new little concept that I call Observation of the Month. And I think I've asked everybody to think about an observation of the month they think would be noteworthy, so I'd like to start, if you don't mind. Would that be okay? I'll give you my observation, and whoever wants to comment on it, of course, can jump in until he shuts you up.
Should we jump in after you're through?
Yeah, I'll observe.
Not as you go.
Here's my observation.
I don't like it already.
You don't like it already? I love to pick on people. You know me, Jerry. I got a great heart. But I was so aggravated because in the last week, and this is very true, folks, as I do a lot of driving around town and go up into other states and do shows. And as I got off the interstate, at the bottom of the interstate, I saw the guy with the sign, "Homeless, please help me, give me money." And, you know, I have seen at least a half a dozen of these people in the last 7 to 10 days. That's true. And my observation was, A, none of them are in a wheelchair. B, they all look very able to work. C, they're all pretty young guys. And I don't know what the hell they're doing out there, because they ought to be having a job, cutting grass, working at McDonald's, doing something productive instead of begging for money so they can buy more booze and more drugs. And I've seen more of them than I can possibly tell you about. That's my observation of the month. Well, and I never see an Asian guy out there. That's another observation.
Well, what you say may be true, but you don't know the mental capacity of these people.
Oh,
I live in Midtown Atlanta, right near the homeless shelter, and there's a lot of homeless people in my neighborhood that I see all the time. And a lot of these people are mentally ill. I mean they are. And they couldn't hold down a job.
I think the minority of them might have a mental problem, but I've got a daughter that's challenged. She's a schizophrenic and has bipolar, and she has held a job at Walgreens for the last 12 years, part-time, never misses a day of work, has her own apartment, takes care of her own life, gets her medication, and I'm real proud of her. She's my hero. Yeah, she's got mental challenges, but she doesn't ask anybody for a dime. These guys are very able-bodied looking people.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
My older brother, who's still alive on radio in New York, he's a Hall of Fame radio talk show host.
That's the good brother.
The good brother. The conservative. He is a conservative. But he had Billy Graham on his show. This was an article in Reader's Digest. He had Billy Graham. They're walking out of the studio at 9:30 in New York. Somebody came up to them, and they were in coat and tie, said, "Sir, I haven't eaten in a few days. Can you give me a few dollars?" So Billy Graham gave him $10. And my brother said, with your tone just now, said, "Reverend Graham, I loved it, but you could smell the alcohol." And Billy Graham said, "Barry, you're probably right, but I can't afford to take a chance." That, to me, is an ultimate Christian or universal spiritual concept. Okay, so that I've loved that story. That really happened.
Well, on the other side of that coin, I believe in the biblical saying that the Lord helps those who help themselves, and I think
we can
the
find
vast majority of those people don't want to help themselves.
Well, then come to the shelter that I'm a board member. It's where you live. The task force. Wait, there are 500 people.
Yeah, okay.
Many of them are soldiers. And go ask your government where you served, as did I, and find out why there's no money to put them in a mental being, so they sleep on a cot by Home Depot and we feed them 2 meals a day. And one more thing. Check about 100 of them work. They cannot afford housing, but they work. They get up at 7. They
100 out of how many?
100 out of 500.
Out of 500.
But there are 150 women and
What
children.
the hell are the other 400 doing if they're not in a wheelchair?
Please, I trust Billy Graham's empathy on this particular.
No, I think that there's people that is the lifestyle they want to live.
What do we go to church and mosque and synagogues for if it's not? We pray for our own fracture. So the point is, tell me what it meant. Where would Jesus be? What would he be thinking?
We're not talking about Jesus.
No,
I'm talking about lazy people.
Do you go to church?
Of course.
Well, what do you pray for?
I pray for world peace.
And what else?
That's about it.
How about charity of our spirit?
I pray for a lot of things.
I'd like to buzz in
Go
for a
ahead.
minute.
Go ahead.
Matt's turn.
Please.
There's no question that we have a homeless problem, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people who do have, as Chris mentioned, they do have mental infirmities that will prevent them from holding a job. But I did see a report, and this is now a couple of years ago, and this was in California, where people who were panhandling on the side of roads were actually pulling in an unbelievable amount of money.
Right.
I mean, so much money that it doesn't pay for them to go out and get a job. They enjoy their life standing there, when they want to, getting change from people and pretending to be a vet or whatever. And so, unfortunately, I don't have statistics one way or the other to say how many people are really faking it and how many people are legitimately incapacitated. But just know that there is that other side, that there are people who are able-bodied who will make a decent living.
Well, that's true. Well, that's true. But the deal is this. I mean, look, if you don't want to give them any money, you don't give them any money.
I don't think they should be allowed to beg money on the street. I think they should be removed by the cops.
That is against the law to panhandle. It's a law.
What the hell are they doing out there?
Well, what are they going to do with it?
I'm not going to report them. You may.
Put them
I
in
don't
his
report
shelter.
them, but I don't give them money. I go to the shelter and we give them food and we give them what they want more is a hug.
If they want a meal, tell them to go to church.
I agree with Chris. Charity should be an individual responsibility. I don't like charity that's bureaucratized through the government, but I do believe in people giving of themselves, and I think it's best to do it through a private organization that can actually vet the people, make sure that they're truly warranting of assistance. But if people are doing it voluntarily, I think that's wonderful. I prefer that than to go through the government.
Well, do you know in New York City, I don't know if you know it now, there are boxes, obvious, big ones, where you cannot give to the... Most
they have one of those
do.
in Midtown right by the Fox.
They do.
Yeah.
And you put money in, and the city distributes and takes care of it best they can. And Bloomberg did a great job with that.
Yeah, they discourage in Midtown residents to not give money to homeless people. And I have purchased meals for homeless people before, but I've never given anybody any money. I mean, if you're hungry, I'll be happy to buy you something to eat. Right. But as far as giving you cash, I mean, I just don't do it.
I picked up the tab in restaurants for veterans and police officers and emergency people. good, hardworking, everyday people that contribute something to society to make our life
We'll
better.
save some because Ted Cruz is going to need a free meal pretty soon. too.
Okay.
I don't have to tell
Now,
you that.
I think it's time to move on to the next observation. Who might have the next observation?
I've got an observation.
Okay.
I got to tell you, I just cannot wait for this Republican convention. I mean, I just can't. And my observation is that I believe that the Republicans have backed themselves into a corner to where they can't win with Donald Trump, and they're not going to be able to win without him. And this thing today with Kasich and Cruz getting together, and now they're going to not attack each other. They're going to attack Trump. And Fox News projections is that with the primaries that are left, and based on the polls, is that Trump is going to walk into that convention with somewhere between 1,100 and 1,140 delegates, and about 2 million more votes than the other people. Now I know that Taft in the election in 1952, he was in the position Trump's in, and the Republicans gave it to Dwight D. Eisenhower. They'd had 20 years of Democratic presidents at that time, and that's who they thought would win, and they made a good choice. But the media scrutiny in 1952 as compared to now is zilch. It was probably mentioned on the 11 o'clock news for a couple minutes, and that was it. If he has that many delegates and they do not give it to him, it's going to be a big mess. A big mess.
There was also a famous president in our earlier history that was in the same situation, a guy named Abraham Lincoln.
That's correct. But once again, there were no cameras, and and nobody on TV screaming into a microphone that they don't care about you, they don't care about the voters, the system is rigged, they're going to pick whoever they want to pick. We have wasted our time.
Well, but they're not going to be running against anybody. Hillary's going to go to jail or at least be indicted before, next November.
That's not going to happen.
Bernie Sanders is a communist. My God, who would vote for him? So what's left?
Look, let me tell you, in the polls, Bernie beats him worse than Hillary does.
That's a scary thought. That is really scary.
Well, I mean that's
because
just
we can go all the way back to all those communist legends like Joseph Stalin.
He's not a communist.
Mao Zedong. Oh yes, he is. He's an avowed communist.
He's an avowed socialist, and there's a world of
what the hell's the
between
difference?
the two.
There is no difference.
Can I answer?
Of course not.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Before I smack
Just
someone, I
trying to
count
stir
and
his
take
pot.
a baseball
Get him
bat to this whole studio. I got a baseball.
Are you having a good time out there in the audience?
Hey! Let me ask you this: in a socialist government, I would be allowed to own my own business, right?
And you'd be limited as to what you'd be able to keep.
Yeah, but in a communist regime, there is no free enterprise of any kind.
That's right. But the problem with that is there's no such thing as communism. But there is such a thing as socialism. You try as you might to achieve communism, you'll never achieve it. But you will have socialism, and if you have socialism, there will be totalitarianism. And socialism ultimately hurts poor people the most. And the reason why is because socialism does not produce any wealth. So, for example, if you go to Bernie Sanders' plan, he's going to say, look, if you make more than $400,000 a year, I'm going to tax you at 97% for everything that's above $400,000. But think about this. The guy who, let's say, owns 2 restaurants, right, and he's earning, let's say, $395,000, and he's thinking, well, I could invest and open up a 3rd restaurant, which could employ 50 more people, and I'd be earning $600,000 at that point. But why would I do that? Why would I work hard? Why would I take the risk? Why would I do that? And so on. What I'm going to do is I can live pretty well for $400,000. So I'm not going to make that. I'm not going to open up that next restaurant. And because he's not going to open up that next restaurant, you have about 50 people that aren't going to get jobs. And that's why socialism doesn't work.
Jerry, you were going to make your observation.
To the point.
I'm sorry.
Now, Al, our wonderful producer, made the point earlier. We were talking. People get divorced because they're screaming and shouting, or worse, beating each other up, right? Mm-hmm. So what we're doing in America is like that. It's a divorce. And I think to the left of Sanders and to the right of Trump, we're seeing a lot of unhappy people. And if they talk with each other enough, they'd probably all be agreeing with each other. I think a lot of those crowds on both sides. The point is this: I'm suggesting, real quickly, I've gone to 70 seders in my life, which is interesting because I'm Catholic, but I'm Jewish. I went to a wonderful seder with my lawyer. There were 25 people. There were 5 non-Jewish people. and they were so lovely, from Midtown. And they said, you know, we don't have Jewish friends, we've never been invited to a Seder. It was lovely. It was a 3-hour Seder, reading from the Egyptian bondage and everything. And then a couple of the lawyers who have done very well, and named, I was the only celebrity's name I didn't know. It was one of those kinds of Seders. Said, America, we have blessings here. We are the luckiest people. We are doing this and that. It was like a postcard of Miami Beach in the 50s. It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then that part of the Seder, everybody can make a comment. And mine was, I said, essentially, but not nearly as glorious as you paint the picture. Mm-hmm. There are millions upon millions, and they would like to have jobs. So another woman who works at Macy's challenged, she said, go and see any piece of cloth that's made in America. All those millions and millions of jobs are gone. You can answer that.
Yeah, because of bad trade deals from the Democrats.
Whatever, that's whatever. I'm just saying that when I was a young man in North Carolina, there were jobs. There were mills. Yeah. There were hundreds of mills. They're all gone.
I know.
They're all gone. And Stevie's parents, the Zager people. It was an economy in Greensboro. Bankrupt town, unless you have money, or the inherited money that a lot of people would get.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the comment was made, not by me, someone said, look, if we keep fighting, where are we going? We're not listening to anybody else. You have your opinions. You're married to them. You're in cement, as I am. I think he is too. We are. Maybe there's some liquid in the cement. But if we don't start listening to each other, because Trump's not going to do anything he says he's going to do if he got in. He's not going to just build that wall. He's not going to ban a billion.
You don't think he'll build a wall?
No. People
I absolutely believe it.
I know you do, and that's the
build the wall.
problem. I know, and Bernie Madoff would love to talk to you. He's got good stock for you. For that.
On that happy note, I think we got to give Matt a chance for his monthly observation.
My monthly observation. Not nearly as exciting as building a wall. The thing that I observed that troubled me was this whole conflict. I'm sure you're very aware of it. The bathroom wars. You have a lot of people out there who, let's take Bruce Springsteen, for example. A lot of these celebrities are weighing in, and they're protesting states that have enacted laws that would require somebody to only use a restroom that is consistent with the birth that's listed on their birth certificate. Mm-hmm. And you have everyone from Ellen DeGeneres to Bruce Springsteen and a boatload of other celebrities who are saying that this is discriminatory and it's bigoted. And I don't see anybody else making what I think is a reasonable argument on the other side to say, look, it's not that we're discriminating against anybody, but isn't there just a very foreseeable workaround here that child molesters will want to use? You can have ill-intended people who will walk into a female's bathroom, or what should be a female bathroom, is now a bathroom open for everybody, and then do some terrible, horrible things to young ladies. And that alone is, for me and for my money, that's enough to be able to segregate the men from the women in the bathrooms. And I don't see that as a bigoted thing. I see that just as common sense. And it's interesting, by the way, that the person who led the effort to boycott this law in North Carolina is himself a convicted child molester. And for me, I think that people are being vilified. Not that there's not a reasonable argument on the other side. I'm sure that people like Bruce Springsteen are themselves very well intended, but they seem to vilify anybody who disagrees with them as a bigoted, discriminating person, when in fact there are legitimate concerns on the other side which would make somebody want these laws to be passed.
Well, okay,
I'll throw that out there.
Okay. In fact, Bruce Springsteen, that's my hometown, Greensboro, so that's where he drew that, and 5 others have too. But 5 Christian ministers, agree with Bruce Springsteen, and their letters are in the editor. So not every person is a liberal as the imprint, a Bruce Springsteen, as if he's a big-time
Jerry,
thing.
I got to get
These
clarification.
Were 5 ministers.
Agrees with him in what respect?
Agrees with the liberal stance on this particular thing.
Which is what? I'm a little confused.
Which is they should not have. There's not been one case in North Carolina of transgender. There have been 700 cases, as your 600 stabbings about in Israel. There were 700 cases of child abuse in restrooms in junior high schools and high school. Not one was convicted as transgender.
But do you think transgender people should be able to use a men's bathroom if they're dressed in drag?
Absolutely do.
Well, if they do,
I'll tell you what.
Because if you recognize yourself, wait, only by your penis, you're a pitiful human.
If I'm standing there with Mr. Johnson, okay, and Caitlyn Jenner walks in and makes me uncomfortable, I'm going to do something to make sure she doesn't stay in there.
I appreciate your ear and how you thought, but if you only identify with your organ, you're rather
I'm
to
not.
me.
I'm identifying with.
You are.
I'm identifying with common sense.
What else are you? You're who you are.
You go to the bathroom,
and you're
with
not just
whatever,
a penis, though. In this
you
case,
go
I'll
to your
make an
bathroom
exception.
with whatever God gave you between your legs. That's the bathroom
I will
that you
make
go
an
to.
exception. Some men are penis, and I think you're one of them. But the fact is, other ones.
Well, I think you're nuts.
Well, then if that's the
No
case,
pun intended.
well then if that's the case,
let's grab them then.
if that's the case, then what you're saying is that a man transgender dressed as a woman comes into men's restroom. You got a real problem with that, right?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a problem with that?
With what?
With a man dressed as a woman, transgender, coming into a men's restroom.
I think they ought to
in
give
there?
them their own outhouse.
Well, no. Do
expensive.
you have a problem with them coming in there? What do you think is going to happen when
When a guy comes in dressed like a woman,
in a
I
men's
got a
restroom.
problem with that.
Yeah. Well,
So you got a problem the other way too, right?
well, but what you're saying and what Jerry's saying doesn't really
Why is this
address
even an
the issue.
issue?
Now, here's the issue. It's not whether transgendered people are committing these crimes. It's that this law would stop men from going into female bathrooms, regardless of whether they're transgendered, from going into female bathrooms to abuse women. The fact is that if you allow unisex bathrooms because you want to help transgendered people, it will allow ill-intended men to go into bathrooms and take advantage of young women. So it's not that they're trying to say, transgendered people, we want to keep you out. It's saying, look, if we don't do this, if we don't segregate men and women, we will have more of these molestation crimes committed, regardless of whether they're done by transgendered people or not.
I have a 7-year-old granddaughter. I took her to the circus, okay? Mm-hmm. She had to go to the bathroom. I stood there outside the bathroom while she went in there. If I saw a guy dressed as a woman go in that bathroom, you better believe I got a problem with that. I got a real problem with that, and he's not going to get past the freaking door.
Bathrooms in Canton, but in Midtown, where I've been since 1960, there are unisex bathrooms.
Well,
the gay bars have had unisex bathrooms for 40 years.
But are these with multiple stalls or just
They're trying to make this law? That's
I don't
the
know.
difference.
I haven't been to many, but I do know that they have.
There's
unisex
nothing wrong with a
bathrooms.
unisex bathroom where there's just one person at a time, right? Because then there's
One-
safety
one
and
person.
privacy. But if you're having unisex bathrooms with multiple stalls, that's, I think, starts
Well,
an issue.
I'll tell you what, our Republican governor here in the state of Georgia, he really caved on this
He
issue.
sure did. He folded like an accordion.
No.
Really
wait,
disappointed
That's
me.
a different
Well-
issue. It's a different issue. That was a law that addressed whether or not let's say a clergyman could decline to perform a religious ceremony for a homosexual couple. That's not the bathroom law. It's a different one. But it's a fair point to raise, right? Because it's a little bit related. But I kind of have the same feeling on that issue as well, which is that you have a lot of people who will point the finger and accuse people of being bigoted and discriminatory because they want a clergy person to have the freedom to be able to decline on the basis of their religion. And I think that that's terrible. I understand why people shouldn't be discriminated against, and I don't like discrimination per se, but I do think that there's nothing wrong with wanting to protect a clergyman's right to decline compulsory service into a ceremony that absolutely violates his very fundamental religious principles.
Jerry,
when I hear God's children talked about in whatever religion, it's so hollow because it means nothing to a large segment of the population, especially in red states.
On that
God's
happy
children.
note, it's your
We're
turn
God's
to have
children.
your
We're
observation
God's
of the
children.
month.
My observation was we got 2 ears and 1 mouth, starting with me. We should listen twice as much as we talk, starting with me. I'm very emotional when I have my issues.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But you believe in utopia, and that's a fantasy.
I don't believe in utopia. I believe in people, but on the contrary. I just believe the hatred and bitterness.
There's nothing hatred.
Let me finish. If they squeezed out this America now, nobody would drink from the juice. It's a very sour juice right now because people aren't giving. We're going to have to give. We give.
Give
It's
what?
We're a married couple, whether we like it or not, and we get divorced, then America is no more divided in my 78 years than it is right now.
This country has changed so much since I was a kid in the 50s. for the worse.
No, absolutely incorrect. I hear people say that all the time. In the 1950s, blacks were discriminated against terribly. Gay people had to stay in the closet. Women had hardly no rights. There's no way you'll ever convince me that this world was better in the 1950s. It was better for white people, okay?
It was better when I was
and this
growing
country,
up
by the way,
we knew right from wrong.
Let me
it
finish
was
my
black
point.
and white. You knew the boundaries. There are no boundaries today. That's what I'm talking
This
about.
country was created for white Christian heterosexuals. That's who it was created for. Okay? And anybody else that does not fall into that realm right there, well, there's an issue with that. Just like you saying about the clergyman, he should be his religious beliefs, just like you saying that child molesters may go into the bathroom. Well, some kook somewhere is going to come up with a religion where they get to discriminate against black people because it's part of their religion. Or they can discriminate against Asian people or women or whatever. I mean, you open up a whole can of worms when you tell somebody that you don't have to do something because of your religious beliefs, no matter what the law says.
Well, ultimately, if we're talking about freedom, and I think that's what it comes down to, if you believe in liberty, and this is going to sound terrible, but I think it's the absolute truth, then you should have the right to discriminate. You should have the right to do it.
You know what?
That doesn't mean it's
right.
It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's moral. But you should have the ability to say, I don't want this person coming into my house. I don't want to have to. You shouldn't be able to affirmatively do something to hurt somebody because it's your religion, right? I mean, you shouldn't be able to commit a sacrifice of a human being, right, because of your religious purpose. But you shouldn't be subject to being conscripted into doing something that you don't believe in, even if it's bigoted. And I would say that, as a Jewish person, I would say that it should be somebody's right to say that they don't want Jewish people to be a member of this club. Now, I wouldn't like it. Okay, and I would obviously it would cause some problems, but ultimately I believe in that person's freedom to do that, and I think that today, because we are much more enlightened, as you said, we are a more enlightened society today, that I think that the people who wind up discriminating against people by exercising their freedom, I think they will ultimately be injured more because they do that, because I think right-minded people will choose to boycott those people and out them for who they are, for the ill will they are. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't say that a clergyman who declines to perform a homosexual wedding deserves to be boycotted or is a bad person. But what Chris is saying is, we open that slippery slope, and there are people that would maybe exploit that to discriminate with an evil intent. But I think that those people would and should be punished socially and with business, with boycotted business. And I think that would happen. So I think that we should allow the freedom, we should allow everybody to discriminate and let them suffer the consequences of discriminating. I think that's ultimately what happens in a purely free society.
Well, the two sectors of this country, when it comes to gay people in general, you got one side, when they see a gay couple, they see two people that love and care for each other. And the other side, you see they see two people who are doing stuff in the bedroom they shouldn't be doing. Okay? And from where I stand, because when I see a gay couple, I see people that love and care about each other, which, I'm not much of a Bible person, but I believe that's what the whole spirit of the book is about, and I don't have a problem with it. What they do in their bedroom is their own business. And if the Constitution says that we all have unalienable rights, and it's my right as a heterosexual to get married, then it should be their right too.
Who says?
Huh?
Well,
the Constitution does.
No, it doesn't. There's not a word mentioned in there about gay couples.
Look, if I have a right to do something in this country, everybody has a right to do it.
Well, they're trying to undermine our values as a country, and
they're your values. They're no longer the values. They're your values.
No, they are the values.
They are not
that this country
obviously
was
it's not the values.
Dennis,
you're not paying attention.
Yes, and
I want to bring you out of Canton for 1 weekend.
Okay?
Come to Midtown,
and that's why this country is going to hell, because of people like you.
They're your values.
And on that note, I think we need to pause for station identification.
Take you outside and give you a big kiss right in the mouth.
I fought for the values of this country. See that?
Tell me where slavery falls into those Judeo-Christian values.
We're not talking about remotely slavery.
Well, you said the country was founded on it.
That was 150 freaking years ago. We solved that issue.
So
you keep bringing it up like everybody's enslaved.
So they founded the country and everything was good except for the slavery part.
I didn't say anything about slavery. You keep bringing it up.
You said this country was founded on Christian values, and if slavery was part of it, that wasn't.
I didn't say slavery at all. You did.
No, you said the country was founded on Christian values.
All right, I'll give you a Christian value. I believe in a man and a woman being married. That's what I believe in.
And
anybody else doesn't qualify.
You don't handle my life, and I don't handle yours.
Two conservative points.
Other people have a right to do what they do.
Number one,
you can do whatever you want to do.
The Constitution was changed, and it abolished slavery, so the Constitution works, even though it was created by white people. That's number one. And number two, the government really should get out of the business of marriage altogether.
Yeah.
No government in marriage, and that would solve everything. I think it would help you in your beliefs. It would help us in our beliefs. The government should not be involved in marriage.
I get the impression, listening to you two guys, that if you saw somebody screwing a goat in the parking lot, you'd say, "Oh, that's acceptable."
I'd call
that's
when
our
you
new
were a
way
Chicago
of doing
policeman,
things.
and you'd beat them to death.
I'd get out and get the camera
and then we'd have to pay the city $500 million because you could have taken 10 seconds and take a deep breath.
I think we need to take a short commercial so we can catch our breath. We'll be right back. Don't leave.
American Hearts Radio Entertainment Network is proud to announce that Dan Glazer's Comics on Parole Open Mouth Night will be held on Wednesday night at Atlanta Comedy Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, where you could get glazed every week with Dan Glazer. Dan has great success with his Comics on Parole Open Mouth Night. Now fate has brought Comics on Parole to a larger stage at the Atlanta Comedy Theater. Come see the Comics on Parole Open Mic at the Atlanta Comedy Theater. This is a show up, go up, for 45 minutes before the scheduled shows. 4650 Jimmy Carter Boulevard, number 114B. Go to www.atlcomedytheater.com. And don't forget to check out Comics on Parole web TV series every first and third Tuesday of every month at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.americanheartsradio.com web TV.
Constitution doesn't say
marriage was made for a man and a woman.
Yeah,
Says who?
wait.
Says God. Hi there. We're back. We're all friends. We were having a kumbaya moment during the break. And
Are you okay, Jerry?
He's good.
I'm chewing.
I can hear his heart beating over here.
All right.
Anyway, back to our conversation.
I got an EpiPen if you need it.
We haven't retained our attorney one time tonight. We've managed to just
He's
throw
been working
bricks
for
at each other. Yeah, without any retaining fee. But anyway, I'd like somebody else to jump in with a question, comment, or observation anytime they want to.
But I'd like to make a comment about the LBGT going on in all these states.
The LB what now?
The law in North Carolina and now Mississippi and Tennessee next week is this. When Nathan Deal, he made a comment, and it had to do with money. Well, we're going to pay a price. PayPal just, dropped out of Charlotte. That was a couple $100 million that they lost. And they lost. It's approaching $1 billion. All right. So the people who want it, including my side, they're not even talking about human. They're talking about the money. That bothers me a lot too. You understand? You hear them talking about.
Well, I mean, Nathan did it. Nathan did it for the money. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he did not have any kind of moral conviction. When Disney said, we're not making any more movies over here, I think that's the straw that broke the camel's back, because they're spending this much money now, and in the next 10 years, man, there's no telling how much money that they're going to spend here.
You're absolutely right, but I want to clarify something for everybody, okay? Because a lot of people have not even looked at the text of the legislation that was proposed. It was passed by both the House and the Senate in the Georgia state government. And it was up to the governor, and you had all these people from Disney to, the movie studios. They all came in and they bullied the governor, and they said, if you do this, we're pulling out. Does anybody really know what that law said? Because I read it, okay? And I'll say this, okay? There is a federal law, which says exactly what this Georgia law says.
Which is what?
Which is basically, it doesn't even talk about homosexuals or anything like that. All this law says, this is a constitutional, it raises the evidence that the state has to show, in order to keep a law that's going to infringe on somebody's First Amendment rights. That's all it says. It says that if you're going to have a law that infringes on somebody's First Amendment free exercise of religion rights, the government has to establish that there's a compelling need for it, as opposed to a rational basis for it. This gets into constitutional law. That's all the law said. And not only that, that is existing federal law that was passed, I think, in the 1990s. Not even from the 1700s. This is from like the 1990s. That is the way federal law is now. The problem with that federal law is it doesn't apply to states. So the states said, oh, well, we need that protection for our own state, so we'll adopt it. And then everybody got on their bandwagon and said, oh, this is discriminatory. We're going to have to make sure that you do not pass this law. But it's a law that already exists on the federal government.
Of the loony left.
I want to say something.
Al.
Based on what you just said, I would have to say that the fact that the governor and House and whoever else had a problem getting that bill passed is their own fault. You are a lawyer here on a internet TV show. You explained it in 30 seconds. Okay? They got money. They got power. And you're telling me they couldn't take a 30-second conversation and explain it to the state of Georgia where they would understand it.
Right.
They didn't make their case.
Because you can't make what I just said, you can't do it in a soundbite, and people have to pay attention. But I agree with you, Al.
They didn't make the case.
I agree with you.
You could have a town hall meeting. It goes on everywhere, and have every channel would have filmed that.
I'm not saying they're right or wrong. My point is that
to
they should
explain
put as much effort as they put into doing all the wording and sitting around talking amongst each other and all that. They could at least talk to the public. Say, look, we're going to explain this. We're not going to rush it.
Right.
We're going to sit down. We're going to talk and explain.
What this was a war of perceptions. And one side hijacked that perception and made it sound like this was terribly discriminatory against gay people, when in fact it has nothing to do, well, I mean, the application would have something to do with gay marriages, but it didn't even mention gay people. All it says is that if something is going to infringe on somebody's religious liberties, the government, it doesn't even say that you can do it. In fact, they had language in there that said they can't do it for an evil purpose. Okay, but what it says is that the government has to establish, as opposed to a rational basis, they have to show a compelling need in order to be able to impinge on somebody's First Amendment rights. And even then, the government may still be able to succeed and say, look, it's compelling enough to not discriminate against gay people that we can infringe on your First Amendment rights. Now, that would have happened from lawsuits, but that doesn't mean that this law would have allowed people to discriminate against gay people. But the bigger issue here is that people are ignorant about this. They have no idea what the statute says, and it's really just a war of perceptions. Who's controlling the narrative?
But the more right you are, the worse the case is for them getting the word out about what it was really about.
This is just another prime example of the loony left hijacking an issue to try to undermine our values. Period. That's my observation.
Your values are not mine.
The loony left. I always like that. The loony left. Yeah. You know, you'd think after you guys put George W. Bush in the White House twice that y'all would come up with something better than that.
What, the loony left?
Yeah.
Every time you guys open your mouth, you're living proof of the loony left.
Is that right? Okay.
That's my observation.
We'll see
Go ahead.
We'll see in November.
Well, we've already seen the loony left has won the last two presidential elections.
Right.
So
You got Mr. Looney himself up there.
The problem is this.
Does anybody else would be impeached 5 years ago?
The South is like their own little bubble. Okay? The rest of the country doesn't see the country the way the South does, and it's always been that way. It was like that when the country started.
People think like me that live in Montana.
It is the South.
No. It's the urban centers have your guys' values, right? And then everybody else in the country has our guys' values.
So Ohio and Pennsylvania, these states that all vote blue. I mean, it's not just the urban. You got to have more than the urban centers to win the election.
That's right.
The whole South, the majority of the Republican Party lives in the South. Fox News. I am not wrong.
You are wrong.
No, I'm not.
The entire country is conservative. The vast majority of the country outside the Northwest is conservative.
Actually, if you look at the county maps who tally all the votes, you could see where they make red and blue, right?
Right.
If you look at it, and a lot of this has to do with the population distribution, but you look, it's astounding. It's like a sea of red with blue dots in all the metropolitan areas.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
The reason blue is where there's heavily population, they have to get along with each other, and they have to be exposed. In Montana or in Canton or out there, you don't have to deal with what I lovingly do in Midtown for 55 years. I moved there because it is diverse. I have Muslim neighbors, black neighbors, a few Republicans, but we get along. We're enjoying life. We're not sitting there in an ugly stew and with such
You don't think people are enjoying life
try it
outside of the
sometime.
metropolitan
and
area?
leave your badge and your gun at home. I can't
You
leave
should
that
come to
stuff
my
there.
neighborhood.
Yeah, no, I've been to your neighborhood.
Have you?
They have the annual Jew hunt. I was there
Oh,
twice.
yeah, you're Jew hunt.
The majority,
Oh, is that what they have?
Let me tell you, that. They found me and they honored me.
That was 50 years later.
the majority of whites that are Republicans in the South live in white bread America. They do. I mean, you know,
What's wrong with that?
there's nothing wrong with that. But
The majority
but
Asians
that is
live in
why.
Asian
But that
neighborhoods.
is why they see the country in a way that the rest of the country don't see. You tell me all you want to about it's more conservative. If that's the case, Democrats would never win an election. And he won the popular vote both times by 5-6 million. So that's
Shows
that
how much
ain't right.
world.
There's the reasons why
how
the
do you account
Democrats
for that?
lost the last couple elections. Okay, one
You mean
is
Republicans?
yeah. I'm sorry, you're right.
I'd like to know how many
one
of them
reason
got
is
buyer's remorse.
one reason is a lot of Republicans and conservatives are not showing up because their candidates are not winning. You have a lot of really conservative people who just refuse to vote. That's number one. Number two, you have a lot of people. Our country has now shifted, in no small part because of Obama's policies, where more and more people are being put on the government dole. More and more people getting money. And Mitt Romney's infamous statement that really hurt him in the long run, which was recorded secretly.
He meant it, too.
Of course he meant it, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's the truth.
It's the truth.
More people are getting the benefits from the government, and therefore they're voting for Democrats. They're voting to get money and to get goodies. They're not
So
doing that
wait,
because
are
they
you
want to
saying
work.
all the underlings are winning these elections?
I'm saying-
the people at the shelter, they go and vote.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah, of
You're
course.
wrong.
Well, I don't
You're
know
wrong.
I don't know if
Well,
they're
I'm
living in
telling you,
shelters.
I want you to
but
check it out.
You get
Not
people
poor
from
people.
Acorn. What do you think Acorn's raison d'etre is?
That was
Acorn.
a terrible scar on me personally.
I'm not even impugning them yet. I'm saying that there are organizations like
you got an
Acorn.
open door for
There
them.
are organizations like Acorn who do nothing but get these people out from the streets to go in and vote.
I would say
the Democrats are very effective at that.
I would say what more than makes up
The
for it
Democrats do a
is us
better
going to
idea of
is
unifying
going
their-
to Iraq and Afghanistan under Bush. That was a lot worse.
There's a difference between
That was a lot worse.
unification of peoples and taking people that are impressionable, that have low education, to convince them to vote for a
That's right,
Democrat.
all the dummies vote
Hillary
Democrat.
is the women's.
smart people vote
Hillary is the
Republican.
protector of
You're
women.
talking about Trump's
the protector
crowd right
of
now.
the
You're
poor,
talking
right?
about Trump's
Hillary's a multi-freaking millionaire, and
Big
is
time.
also a big thief
Big time. Big time.
and a socialist.
You know why?
slash
The
communist.
Democrats won in 2004?
2004.
George. You know why they won in 2000,
George Bush.
2008? George Bush. You know why they won last time? George Bush. You know why they're going to lose this time? George Bush.
No, George
Blame
Bush
it
has
on
nothing to do
Bush,
with
my
this.
God.
With
Look,
this next election, George
Look,
Bush has
the
nothing to do with
last
it.
time we had a Republican president, okay, his last year in office, the stock market fell 10,000 points. Unemployment doubled under him when he was in there, okay? People's houses dropped in value for the first time in American history. The man had a 22% approval rating, and there are people in this part of the country that will look you in the eye and say, he wasn't that bad a president.
Yeah,
He wasn't that bad of a
because
president.
for 6 of his 8 years, the Democrats controlled Congress.
Incorrect.
That's
No,
not
you got
correct.
it backwards, buddy.
No, I don't
For
have it
six,
backwards.
yes, you do.
Are you kidding me? Who was the Speaker of the House?
To
Who
that-
was the Speaker of the House for the first 6 years of his... The Speaker of the House who has to be from the majority party. Who was it?
Nancy
Pelosi wasn't the
Pelosi.
first. She was the last 4, not the first 4.
Who was the first? You think the Democrats controlled Congress from 2004 to 2008? I'm sorry, from 2000 to 2006?
No, the Democrats did not. That's what I said.
No, they did. They did. They absolutely did.
So it's their fault.
Well, you're
So
sitting
it's
here
their
making
fault.
a broad brush statement saying all these terrible things about unemployment and debt, and you're saying you're blaming it all on the
All right,
president.
it all
and
happened.
you can't do that.
It all happened in 2008. Who had the majority the last 2 years he was in office?
The last two, who? Obama or
Bush. Who was in charge the last 2 years he was in office?
I think it was Pelosi, wasn't it?
Look up what the majority was in 2008. Al.
What, is that what he's getting paid for?
Yeah.
I guess we should take a commercial break while we do this.
No, let's keep talking.
Let's keep talking?
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't. People don't
By
want to
the
see.
way,
What
They
difference does it make?
By the
Yeah,
way-
exactly. What difference does it make?
You can't handle the truth.
By the way, give my regards to Dennis Hastert, another one of your
Dennis
Republicans,
Hastert?
one of
Yeah.
your icons, one of your great Republican icons.
Yeah, he's going to jail, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He deserves
No
it.
kidding.
Going to jail
See, here's
for
the thing.
15 years.
Here's the thing. You tell a Republican that a Republican's going to jail because he committed a crime. They'll say he deserves it. You tell a Democrat that a Democrat's going to, you're not going to get the same reaction.
You know, that's the problem when you lump of people. Look, I was born in 38. In Greensboro, there were 12 Jewish families. We all got beat up. Your friend won't know it. His father would, right? Because we killed God. Well, my parents were in Baltimore when that was going on. We didn't do any of that. We had to fight our way through. Not nearly everyone, but a lot of Gentile people lovely couldn't wait to go to church and find a Jew to beat on because the blacks couldn't get anywhere near. They would have done worse to them. We're growing up now. We're growing up because it's exposure to other people. It's not staying away from them. It's called education. So come out of Canton. I'm going to bring you to Midtown, and you'll have fun. I promise. And you'll go home safely. You take your machine guns. You'll still.
I'd like you to take a trip to Islamabad, Pakistan.
I've been there. It's called Detroit, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I work in Detroit more than I work in Canton.
Walk through the town there with your yarmulke and see what kind of reaction you get. This is going to be a kumbaya moment, you think? They're going to give you a big hug, you think?
Yeah.
They're going to cut your freaking head off.
Dennis, you're
There's a
watching these
difference
John
between
Wayne
Muslim
movies.
people in the country
there are other movies than John Wayne
Americanized
movies.
and Muslims in the Middle East.
So what, we should get rid of all of them?
I didn't say
No,
that.
he didn't say that. He didn't say that.
What are you saying?
I didn't say he said it. I'm
All
just
he's
asking
saying,
you.
his point is this. His point is
What is
that
the
the
point?
Muslims that you see in the United States do not reflect the attitudes and the values of the Muslims who are not in the United States, particularly those who are more in the Middle Eastern area.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't.
Just like the Ku Klux Klan does not reflect the view of Christians.
I don't know how you can compare Ku Klux Klan to
Because the
Muslims.
requirement to be in the Ku
Al
Klux
might
Klan is
know.
you have to be Christian. Now, do all Christians think that the way that the Ku Klux Klan does? Of course not.
No, but how many Ku Klux Klansmen are there, and how many Muslims are there?
Well, there's a lot more Muslims.
Oh, a lot. It's
Yeah,
not
there-
just a lot. I mean, it's exponentially a lot.
Right.
Would you be
There's
comfortable
1.6
walking the
billion
streets of
of them.
Pakistan with your American hat and all
Well,
that?
first off, I have no desire to go to Pakistan.
But if you were there, if you did a gig
I
there,
can't
they paid you
think-
so much you couldn't turn it
I
down.
wouldn't go play a gig in Pakistan. I mean, what they do over there, you know, it's their deal.
Why do you
know?
hate the Pakistanis so much? Why,
I don't.
Why are you so intolerant?
I don't hate Pakistan.
Why are you discriminating
Well, when I
against
go- when I
The
go-
Pakistanis?
whole country. You won't even
When I go-
talk to people in the whole country.
Look, the president of
This
my
guy's
bank,
supposed to be an
the
enlightened
president of
liberal.
my banker.
You're anti-Pakistani.
Yeah, what's the matter with you?
No, I
You're
don't care.
supposed to
I
be a
don't care.
loving,
I don't care what they do in
inclusive guy.
Pakistan. But I'm not interested in going, and it has
Why?
nothing to do with my safety.
But you can reach
But I'm
out and
not interested
change
in
their
going.
attitudes. You can bring them to the, being a progressive
I'd
like
sure
you
like
are.
to. Yeah. Sure
like
like to.
Jerry wants to do.
Sure
Give them a
like
big
to.
hug.
Yeah.
You know, if
Change
you tried
their
to do that, you
attitude.
wouldn't come home.
I'm not a
Jerry, right?
policeman, and I respect most of you guys, but the ones in Chicago,
Yeah.
they're paying $506 million for police brutality because they've murdered people who were innocent.
Oh my God! Get off of that. I
Wait,
I
wait.
lived the life, and I can tell you that's
didn't do-
completely
you-
untrue.
Because you didn't murder anybody.
Wait. There's no question that there have been mistakes, terrible, horrible.
Mistakes.
No,
You've
seriously.
got some brutal people doing that
Yeah, yes.
because they're not trained.
I agree.
The Marines are better trained.
I agree. No. There's been some horrible implementations or violations of police policy, and you get a couple of them, and they're going to be gigantic settlements. Okay, so just because there's $500 million doesn't mean that there's 500 million different instances.
It's a symptom.
But
If
wait.
it were a tumor, we'd say, let's look at this carefully.
Wait. I'm sure there's been a murder or two, so that actually qualify as murder. But there's many of them, like for example, the one that happened in New York in Staten Island, okay, and I would side with the victim 100%, but I don't think it was intentional. I think it was bad police work. I think it was bad training.
That's what
the
I was
guy
saying.
who was,
That's what I was
it was a big heavyset guy who was selling cigarettes illegally.
Right.
There's no way that guy
And
should have
5
died.
of them took him down.
Yeah,
choked.
and one of them was black, okay? And there's no way
Right.
that should have ever happened, and that those people deserve whatever money they get, okay? But that wasn't a murder, and that was just terrible police work. And there's a lot of instances where there's just terrible police work, and people have to get better at training these police officers. And there's probably a few bad eggs
That's the
also.
underpoint. If I had been more reasonable in my tone, that's the point. That we have work to do. Can we
Yes.
agree with that? There's a lot
I
of
absolutely
work to
agree
do.
with that.
I think that's the point.
Who doesn't have work to do? We all have
We
work
have
to
a
do.
lot of work to do. Yeah.
Not those guys that Dennis doesn't want to give money to.
They don't have any work to do.
I never have work to do. They get up in the morning, get a sign, and go panhandle. John Stossel did it and collected $200 a day right outside Grand Central Station.
You know, you haven't commented yet on the Koch brothers. I think it's a big
What
statement.
about the Koch
The
brothers?
Koch brothers who recently said they might
They
vote
don't
for
affect
Hillary?
me.
No, they said they're not. Yes.
Yeah, they
said-
can't find it. They can't
said
find a candidate.
There's nobody that they could
That's
give
right.
a dollar to, much less
How do you feel about the Koch brothers now? They said that they might vote for Hillary. They might support Hillary.
If they do, I won't vote for Hillary.
You hate the Koch brothers more than you like Hillary.
Hillary isn't going to take their
Who's
ship.
more evil, the Koch brothers or what's that guy's name?
George
the little
Soros.
Jewish guy. Yeah, let's talk about George Soros.
He's a self-hating Jew. You know, he's a member of the Judenrat.
The puppet master, so to speak,
That
the
guy-
man behind Obama. Okay?
George Soros said that he actually enjoyed turning in Jews to the Nazis. That's what he
Yeah,
said.
let's talk about him for a while. He's a progressive. He's a liberal. He gives money to all these wacko organizations to try to undermine our values in this country.
Not your. Don't confuse me.
Our values
Don't
in this
confuse
country.
me with
if
him.
you live under the
Yeah.
American flag, it's your values too,
It's
buddy.
our values.
That's
I
what's
said
kept this
ours.
country great
Yeah.
and surviving.
It's our
If
values.
we change that, we're doomed
No, it's
to
changing.
go under
No,
like the Roman Empire
no,
did.
To you, I'm going up.
Because
to you,
of
we're going
people
down.
like you
Oh, boy.
and George Soros.
Look, the country has to progress. I mean, it just does. It's been progressing ever since it started.
What's progression to you? What the hell is progression to you?
All right, well, you don't want me to say it again, but I'll say it when the country started.
Homosexuals marrying is progression?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Who says?
Who says? Who says there's something wrong with it?
God said it.
Now, see, there you go. There you go. You have to bring him into the conversation. This may you find this hard to
You
believe.
don't believe in
But
God,
a lot of people.
so therefore you don't know that he said it.
No, I don't know if there is a God or not.
You don't believe in God. You just said it.
I didn't say that. I said I was agnostic. I don't.
So you need to be trained.
I don't know if there is
find
or
your
if there
Savior.
isn't. I don't know if there is or there isn't. In fact,
Why?
everybody
Who made the stars and the moon? You
everybody
think they just blew up?
Everybody is agnostic because nobody knows for sure.
It's common sense,
But I
my
admit,
friend.
common sense.
Yes, that's what's
Common
missing in
sense.
the liberal
and,
camp.
and that book you're talking about that says the world is 6,000 years old and that Noah built this ship the size of an aircraft carrier out of mud and wood.
I'm talking about men marrying men.
6,000
Dog years.
That's not even close. That's not even close. There are so many inaccuracies
When
in there.
men lay with men, it's an abomination.
Leviticus.
Look, do you know what the verse after that says?
I don't read the Bible.
Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you what the verse after that says. It says it starts going down a list.
I told you we'd get a comedic moment out of this.
It starts going down the list about how you shouldn't have sex with animals. You shouldn't
Of
have.
course you should. Well, let's stop there.
That-
Is there an animal you're attracted to?
No, but what I'm trying. The point is that is the level of intellect of these people. Did anybody ever have to tell you not to have sex with an animal?
No, but apparently I
back
have to tell you.
No, back then they did. Back then they had to tell them. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely
What's
ridiculous.
ridiculous, Chris?
The whole thing about the gay thing. People are born gay. Okay, so they're not supposed to explore their own desires like we do.
They can do whatever they want, but they shouldn't get married. That's strictly for a man and a
Why
woman.
does it affect you so
Why does it
much?
affect you so much?
Because
Why
it's
can't-
part
Let
of
God
our
deal with
values.
it. You live your life and let God deal with that at some point. And you let God
I
deal
don't
with it.
want my
You're not the
grandchildren
judge. You're not.
to be influenced by that
Then keep your
degrading
children.
situation.
Keep them in
Well,
a
then you
gated
need to move to
community where you
Pakistan.
belong.
I agree with you that that's for God to
That's for
judge,
God
and
to decide.
and not for us to judge. But
I don't read
I
the
also don't
Bible.
think that the government should get involved. I think the government should be out of that. The government should not be in our relationships.
Well,
Thank
let
you.
me ask you this, if I may.
Yes,
if
you
it
in the
weren't
back.
for government, would blacks have been integrated? Tell me.
If it
I
wasn't
lived
for-
through
if
it. You
wa-
did not.
if
But
it-
what you
yeah, let me
learned
tell
in
you
a book.
something. If it
what
wasn't
about
for Christianity, blacks would not have been liberated. Okay? The abolitionist movement was a Christian
You know
movement.
that's not the case. It was a federal law.
Absolutely, that's the case.
it
The
was not
abolitionist movement was a
Nobody
Christian
said,
movement.
Christian, we are going to allow blacks in. That was a law. They had to send state troopers down here.
He's talking about the 1860s. You're
I'm talking
about the 1960s.
Yeah, the 1960s.
We're talking about the 1860s.
It was against the law in
Christians were
1965 in Virginia for a
anti-slavery.
black man to date a white woman. 1965, and the man just got out of jail. The government pardoned him in Virginia. Recent time, 1965, not
here's-
that long ago.
While we got 5 minutes left, I'm glad you mentioned Virginia. Here's a subject I really wanted to bring up. The governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, just this past week.
I loved it, yeah,
And
thankfully.
he worked for the Clintons before he was
I know
governor of
Terry
Virginia.
McAuliffe,
He's going to
yeah.
let 200,000 felons vote. When you're convicted of a felony in this country, you lose the right to vote.
No,
but not with him. He's going to pull an Obama and do a... He's going to pull an Obama and do a manifesto.
To those of you who are religious or Catholic, whatever you are, this is from the Pope.
I don't care about the Pope.
No, he defies
he defies
everything.
Felons
you only care what
officials. That's ridiculous.
The what?
He's going to let convicted felons vote.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Does this mean Hillary should go in San Quentin?
Let me ask you. Probably if she's guilty. Yes,
she'll be with her constituents.
Of course.
See,
this is stupid.
But when they're pardoned, that means in this country a pardon. That's what he does. He's not getting him out of jail to vote. They've done their time. They paid. What's the lawyer say?
Here's the other half of that coin. Recently,
when they've served their time, what would that mean to you?
Recently, Obama let out of federal penitentiaries multitudes of drug dealers because they were, quote, nonviolent. One of the guys he let out committed murder within a week of his release.
Have you ever smoked a joint? You need that more than anything. Yeah, you do.
No, it's
you
illegal.
Need to smoke a big doobie
and
listen to the doobie.
And on that happy note, folks, I want you to tune in again next month to our Stirring the Pot episode. This is Dennis. Adios.
I'm sure.